So, what am I going to drink today? The infamous Phi New Pie glass. Oh, I could Haitian rum for the rum bakes this weekend. The good old Iron Fish maple syrup barrel finished bourbon. Hmm. Wait for Brian, Ken, and Sean O'Keefe to join the party. What's up, Brian?
What's up?
Not much.
Looks like you had some important business you're taking care of in that white two guys tasting sweatshirt on it that I seen on Insta.
Yeah, had to do a podcast for the event that I'm doing in a week.
Okay.
It is women who wine, rum, and whiskey. Primarily all African American women that are either um, wine producers, rum producers, or whiskey producers. And Robin McBride is coming in from the McBride sisters.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that a few months ago.
Yeah,
This is it, huh?
yeah. And so now I get to do this wonderful thing with because Tamala Todd is going to be there, Latoya Flint is going to be there, Latoya Thompson is going to be there, um, and I'm one of the moderators for the panel discussions. And so basically, um, one of the other moderators, Imani Thomas, I got to meet her. I went to her wine tasting last year during the summer. She had a wine tasting in downtown Detroit, and I went and didn't get a chance to meet her, but somebody else was trying. Oh, I told you, I connected with the Ulta Mexican whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent her my other contact at Imperial, which is, what's his name? Cicola. I want to say he's like one of the VPs or something like
Okay.
that. So I told her to reach out to him and contact him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I needed to do some more research on her whiskey because everybody keeps asking me if it's agave based. And no,
Mm-hmm.
it's not. It's ancestral corn,
Okay.
but it's finished in like agave barrels.
So how can they call it? Does she call it tequila?
No, she calls it Mexican whiskey.
Okay.
She's not. This is not tequila at all. This is Mexican whiskey, and um, it's just interesting. When I saw it posted, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Yep, I'm letting Sean in now. Yep, I'm just waiting to see where she is exactly, but
Sean,
the
Hey,
mad
how's it going?
scientist
what's going on, brother?
appears.
Yeah. Oh,
What's going on?
Been a
I
while,
don't know.
man.
It feels like spring, even though it's not spring. Birds are singing. Fall's harvest is coming already.
Yeah, and it's raining like gangbusters down
Yeah.
here, and we're supposed to have really dense fog in the morning.
Sounds mysterious. Sounds cool.
Yeah,
I would almost prefer that personally, because right now what I have is a big lake in my backyard from 10 feet of melting snow and a mud pit where my truck's parked. So that's no fun at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not far from Lake St. Clair, so on my way home, I was there. There are so many ice fragments pushing up on the shore now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think East Bay is starting to have some crevices, and the sheets are starting to push against each other and
Yeah,
make these mounds start to develop.
yeah. I'd hate to
And
see
I,
some of the backyards that are right off of. Uh, they're like in Groves, yeah, in Groves Point, right off of the lake, which is like
and
right where the Detroit River is opening into the lake.
oh
Their
yeah,
backyards probably have so much ice in them. It's a doggone shame.
and I know they say there's like 5 to 8 inches of ice on the bay still, but once it turns 50, there ain't no way I'm going on that water at all.
All right.
Okay, we're about to hit 8 o'clock. And welcome to Two Guys Tasting, Sean.
Yeah.
I'm I'm just gonna preface this by saying, and I know Brian is tired of me saying it. I I, I do have a list of who I consider the best winemakers in the state of Michigan, and I have a top 10, but I know who my top four are. And you're definitely in my top four. And I have literally Two Guys Tasting has interviewed. You'll be the third, and I got a chance to interview Charlie Etzen back in 2020.
Oh, cool.
And so we've had Charlie. I've had Charlie Etzen. Two Guys Tasting have done Jim Lester, Brian Obrecht, and now you.
Yep. I wouldn't mind being in that group. That's a very
It's
Brian and I started around the same time.
Yeah, you just froze for a second, Sean.
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
know.
what you're
Well,
saying is I think what you're saying is that you have been doing it for a while, at least as long as Albrecht, but probably longer. I think if the math adds up.
well, I mean, my dad moved us all up when I was about 4 years old, and I mean, one way or another, I was involved in it from the very, very beginning. We up here, and yeah, I mean, it's been on my mind for a good 50 years now, and I haven't been really passive, sitting on my heels most of the time. I've been really consciously trying to make and do things here in the time I'm allotted to. I wouldn't say put the place on the map, but understand where we are located on the map and not just try to follow trends around the country or other places that don't make sense for here. And I've been very actively doing that from the beginning, and that has come with some really big some successes. And then also I have to know when to walk away from a couple of things, including my family's winery, and that's just the nature of things. So now on my third act coming up, which I can't talk too much about, but I always will be making wine this fall, and I'll probably talk a little about it, but it's something I like to do. Yeah, yeah. I'm not
Are we
known
gonna get
very
a
well
big
for
break?
holding.
Breaking news here on
No,
Two Guys Tasting
I
Podcast.
just want to know when and where,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I can get a taste
yeah,
because I already know it's going to
yeah.
be good.
Well, the good thing is that the thing about winemaking is it takes so long. I mean, you have to plant vineyards, and I mean, ideally, you want to be working with 30 or 40 year vineyards at the minimum at some point. And we're just getting there on some vineyards, and then some of the very first ones planted, aren't haven't really held up all that well. There's only very few left, out of my family's
Mhm.
ones and all that. Um, but that's the thing that drew me to it though, is that winemaking takes so long. It's not something like where you mess up a batch, you make another one. I mean, no offense to my
Right.
beer making friends and all that, but we have one chance a year to bring everything in. And it's usually coming sometimes all within a couple week period. And then there's anything can happen in that time. And, as time goes on, you learn how to manage and all that. And the walk away from vineyards you planted or programs or teams you built, like in any business, is interesting, to say the least. Um, but as time goes on, though, I've been around for so long in this industry, it's pretty easy to start at a pretty high level because I already have all the connections with my friends who can sell this stuff, who like this stuff, that will work with me and grow things. And so here we are.
So let me ask you this question. You
Mhm.
don't have to answer it. Is your next phase on Old Mission?
Yeah, it does. I considered Finger Lakes and things, but I know all my knowledge is based here.
Yeah.
I mean, I could extend to Leelanau in the area because I mean, as much as we like to say we're different, we're not. As much as we'd like to think. On at least on some on winemaking issues of soil and climate. Um, yeah, I think the big thing, and this is no secret, is up here. Chateau Grand Travers, my dad's winery was the first commercial winery up here anywhere in the area, and um, and a lot of it was, I wouldn't say experimental. My dad wanted to plant. He knew Riesling was the thing that he wanted to do
Hmm.
at a time when it was the least popular variety in the world, and now it's still not all that popular, but it's very well respected in a lot of the circles that matter.
Hmm.
And then Gamay Noir came on later, and that was partly with a little bit of help of Mark Johnson that went over to Chantel. But and I think I'm going to spend my at least for my personal label is it's time to specialize. I made at Mari and at Chateau Grand Travers, but especially Mari, I made wines from. Okay, Riesling, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Friulano, Malvasia Bianca, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Gruner Veltliner, and probably a couple other whites. Reds, Gamay, Pinot Noir, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Teroldego, Refosco, Scupatino, Nebbiolo, nine other ones that I can't think of right now.
Right.
Grind. And I'm not talking about like a couple of cases. I made hundreds of cases of each of these every year. And I think I did it pretty well. But at the end of the day, my favorite wine when people ask is like a 2016 dry Riesling I made at Mari or a 2010 Lot 49 at Chateau Grand Travers.
Hmm.
And that's where my true love is. And that's where my training was. Gamay, I've had some really good ones, but the vines are just starting to get old enough. If I have access to some of the ones from my family that my brother and I own, and we'll see. And then the other thing is that I think everybody should be doing more sparkling.
Agree.
Because that's the area as the world gets warmer, we're in a unique spot with our lakes and the varieties we grow and our sandy soils, and so those are the things I want to work on. Then I have to make a dime, doing things for other people. If somebody really wants to grow the Great Tyrol to go up here, I'm going to help them.
Hmm.
So yeah, but specialization, I think that's our region's never got. It's just starting to. That's why I kind of opened up the three trees. This is from Leelanau County. This is a 2021 Merlot. They grow Merlot and Cabernet Franc, and that's really all they make. They sometimes venture and they'll make a Chardonnay or something, but they're tiny. They're not trying to scale up. They have a beautiful tasting room right over the hill from Chicone by Shady Lane and all that.
Hmm.
And they're focusing just on Cab Franc and Merlot, and they do a really good job at it right out of the gate. And I think you're going to see that in a lot of the newer wineries. Partly it's the economy that's not allowing, the big wineries that have inns or tasting rooms and things are fine, but to enter this business these days, not everybody has 15, 20 million to plunk down and not see it back for 20 years. So we got to start small,
Same. Yep.
know every single one of your customers, and then not and you have to charge more because it costs so much to make wine up here. And this is in an
Right.
economic climate where people have less and less cash to spend on things. But from what I've been able to see, they'll buy less wine, but they'll buy a fewer bottles, but they'll buy really nice stuff that has something that speaks to them, whether how they farm or or something that wine can bring, which is so many different things.
Yes, personal connection,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, it's always
I
been that, but it's
yeah,
more, it's now it's everything. Yeah.
I think I mean Cap Franc has certainly been on the list for at least northern Michigan and
Mhm.
definitely Southwest for some time. I really think we got a chance with Merlot, man. I think there's an opportunity here because of the versatility of Merlot that we could make some really nice Merlots coming up here in the near future if people were to focus on it. But that's just my opinion.
I think you're right. Cabernet Franc is the darling of the moment, and you can always tell whenever the Finger Lakes start saying that they discovered something, it means we've been doing it for about 15 to 20 years ahead of them. Seriously. And Cab Franc is I think there's a lot of hope in it, and there's a lot of neat things, especially in blends and things, especially at Blaufränkisch. But Merlot, just because of the, sideways and just because of the, success of Duckhorn and these other ones that developed a certain kind of softer style, let's put it that way. Um, I agree with you. It grows well up here. It's a universal blender. I mean, I blended it with Tyrol to go and make beautiful wines, Merlot on its own. And these
Mm-hmm.
guys at Three Trees are nailing it. I mean, they're doing this in concrete vessels, which seems to really, Merlot seems to like that quite a bit. I mean, it's aged in larger wood afterwards, but I agree. And then and a lot of times, to your point, it grows well here. It's one of the first varieties that my dad planted, not by purposely, but by accident. He was talking to Bernie Rink at Boscadell.
Mm-hmm.
And Bernie, if you remember him, had a real draw, especially he's been tasting wine all day. And
Yep.
my dad was like, this is in the early 70s. He was asking if, what's that vines over there? He was visiting him at Boscadell or before whatever Boscadell was at his house. And
Right.
he goes, it's Marlot and it grows well. And my dad thought I said Merlot. Apparently there's some hybrid or something called Marlot. So my dad planted a little corner in 1974 and it's still up in there. And it survived all these winters, all the neglect of the 80s. And um, yeah, I think you're onto something. And then because everybody is not paying attention to it, that's the very time to define it.
Yeah.
Everybody right now it's Sauvignon Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, and I think we make great Sauvignon Blanc and potential to define our own style up here. But Merlot, Riesling, dry Rieslings and things are, and Gamay, those are, well, Gamay is kind of a hot thing right now too. But anyways, yeah, I think you're right.
Well, good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I think I so to kind of take a step back and knowing that we are um speaking to people that might not necessarily be familiar with Michigan wine in general. Sean, why don't you give us a little bit of a background and maybe sprinkle in a little bit of your work with the IRF and just so that some of the viewers, when we're posting this online, can get a taste of where
Oh,
you're
sure.
coming from and what you're doing.
Well, I'm infamous for digressions and going off on very esoteric directions on things. So I'll do my best to kind of keep it focused. So my I was born in Southfield. I don't remember it much. We moved up here when I was about 4 years old. My dad first tried to buy, this is with Leader B. Chateau Grand Travers, tried to buy some vineyards in Germany. He had, I don't know why. He's there at the end of World War II. He didn't fight, but he was stationed there, watching getting all the troops come back to the United States, which took all the way up until present day. And he fell in love with German wines and fell in love with, he met some really interesting winemakers and professors over there. And my dad had no hard feelings at the time about at least some of the winemakers. They were usually caught in the crossfire of things. And I'll leave that a topic for something else. But um, he tried to buy a vineyard there. It didn't work. And he felt that we had a vacation house up here in Traverse City. And he felt that there was a similarity to the river regions of Germany, like the
Mm-hmm.
Rheingau. There's none of I mean, it doesn't look like it at all. What we saw was the presence of water, slopes, fruit trees with growing fruits that are known for their acidity, whether it be cherries or we used to have a lot of peaches and apricots up here at one point too, and apples, obviously. And he felt that that would be a great area for Riesling, which was his favorite grape at the time and always was, which requires a cooler climate where we have enough sunlight and warmth and the winters aren't too cold and they won't kill the vines, but enough to get things just ripe so you have that nice tension of acidity and kind of like strawberries in Michigan, how they taste so much better than the hothouse things you get all the time of
Absolutely.
year. So he was right on that, moved the whole family up, and then immediately the recession hit in the 70s and doubled, OPEC oil crisis. And well, it sounds familiar, doesn't it? So, and it went from a hobby to our only, the only business he had. He's did everything. And I grew up kind of in that, not knowing if it was going to be there in a couple of years or not. And it was glorified farming. And back then, farming wasn't glorious. There 70s and 80s. I mean, there weren't a lot of, you didn't know who beer makers and winemakers were for the most part, unless they were um, uh, famous, European producers or something. And even then, it was more about the vineyards and things in the state than the people. And so it was never really a business that I thought like, oh, that's gonna be a great. I'm gonna make a lot of money and be, do a lot of cool things. It seemed like kind of a lot of work with very little return until I got in my 20s and I went over to Germany for a little bit to study with the one of our winemakers that moved back there, and I just fell in love with it. I love the idea that everything wine so speaks of where it comes from. So if you grow something one place, it's not going to taste like it in another place. That you could take some of the things that people always complain about the area up here. Oh, it's cold, or the winters, or this or that, or we have sandy soils, and then try to use all those things to your advantage to make something that has a really unique vision. And back then, tourism wasn't that great. So, I mean, to be growing grapes up in northern Michigan was kind of a long shot prospect if you would ever stay in business. And yeah, the first two wineries were Chateau Grand Travers and later Chateau Chantal, on Old Mission. And then uh, I keep on forgetting the other peninsula. And Larry at Mauvie and Bruce Simpson
Yep.
at Clear Harbor, and then Leonel Wine Cellars were all the original. Well, those were original in Chateau Chantal and Bowers Harbor the next, and a few years after that. Um, I grew up in the wine business. My dad started it up here. I went to Germany. I studied winemaking in some of the schools there. I did, I went for the apprenticeship. I didn't go for the whole system. I went for a year. Got yelled at in German for a year. That was cool. Learned a lot. And then I moved up. I went to a wine school called Geisenheim, which is kind of I call it like the Hogwarts of Riesling. It's all these old families and that have been making Riesling forever. And I learned so much when I was there. And what I liked a lot is that everybody knew who my dad was. I mean, they go like, "Oh, they don't. Do they grow Riesling in the United States?" They go, "The only one I know is that guy from Michigan." I mean, that was my dad, and that was cool. Then all of a sudden, I realized that Traverse City, back before it was, nobody knew what it was back then. And the idea of coming back to where I lived in a very beautiful spot of the world and trying to use all the things that make this place what it is and make it into the bottle somehow by how I grow things, meaning try to really look at the land and the climate here instead of like trying to ape or mimic California or whatever the market was doing, is just really do things right. And then if you can survive economically for at least 10 or 15 years, people will hopefully will come around and go, yeah, I always knew you were going to be great. It took much longer than 15, and it's still happening. So, and then a lot of it was, and this is where I'm unique up here, is I think it's really important to keep all our world connections, especially with the wine growing regions. It's just we don't need to do everything over again. People have been doing this for so long, and especially like the European monks, and then did such a great job of recording what they did and how they did things and observing things. And then the whole modern era, which I'd include Australia, New Zealand, and all the other areas where they're growing grapes, and then the New World in California and Oregon, Washington, Chile, Argentina. There's so much to learn from everybody, and then but you can't just copy something. You have to look, you have to understand your area here, and without the horse blinders on or the rose tinted glasses or whatever the metaphor is, see it for what it really is, see what the positives or negatives, and then learn from other areas that have to deal with these things. Sometimes a cold climate, well, we have to learn from high alpine viticulture. It might not be a one-to-one comparison, but there's a lot of things you can learn. And then sometimes we think we can learn like, oh, we should do everything like they do in certain parts of Germany, And then this absolute wrong thing to do because we are on the 45th parallel and they're much higher. And that all that stuff, I'm not saying these are just examples of things that you can always constantly be thinking about and put into practice, but it takes decades to prove whether you have the persistence or if you were right. Right meaning that you consistently are making some things with different years and different vintages. And then, the economic clout or, and wine writers and people paying attention to you. And obviously, if you're still solvent and are able to sell wine. And part of that effort, I worked with my friend Amanda Danielson, who moved up here, um, well, a long time ago now, and has Trattoria Stella up here. And we founded a thing called City of Riesling, kind of loosely inspired by what Paul Greco was doing in New York, I think called Summer of Riesling, where this hot restaurant, and it's still doing it in Tribeca, would only serve Riesling for all of summer, so from June 21st to September 21st, nothing else to make a point. And he did that in New York City, so we thought we'd do something in Traverse City, but we didn't have. I've always been conscious. We're not Napa. We're not we're a very tiny wine region, and for anybody who's been into a major wine region, some little town in Rheinhessen, Germany, horizon to horizons, all vineyards. They have more grapes than probably New York State and Michigan combined, all within a tiny little area. And so I don't have any. We're important, but we're tiny, so we have to. And so the idea was to bring the city of Riesling, was bring all the winemakers here and not make it like a debutante ball for us, like aren't we great, but actually have where all these people gather and share knowledge and whatnot is where that's where the city of Riesling is. Maybe and we brought for my little, our slice of the world Riesling, I really tried to look out for up and coming wineries. We had Ernie Lozen and we had we had the winemakers from Chateau Saint Michel, and and some really, the real for our little tiny slice of the world, very famous, very high high hitting people. But it's also like bring all the Oregon winemakers here that no one had heard of at the time, or the hardcores in California that are growing really decent Riesling in Napa of all places, or up in or in Paso Robles and all that. Get the New Zealanders and the Australians and then all the Germans, but not necessarily the ones that you'll heard of. Like find the unknown regions because Traverse City, and I would say Michigan as a whole, and especially Detroit, has always been from the 70s on really overlooked. Flyover state or has-beens or they think we're either a frozen cornfield up here or a like
Mhm.
or a RoboCop down in Traverse City. And some of those things are true, but a lot of it there's so much beauty and culture here that we all know all that stuff now, but no one was believing in us. And so the idea of being able to bring all those people here, show how beautiful it is, show that this is a wine region, and that our wines can stand up to theirs. Not one's not better than the other. Well, if somebody's been doing it for over a millennium, I can admit when there's something that I'll never be able to do in my lifetime. That's just, I mean, otherwise you're just deluded. But at the same time, it's not grown here. It's something else. And that so bringing people here, doing all those kind of things, and trying to link all the other winemakers and people up here in the larger community of wine people. And then, and when I was at Mari Vineyards, when I went to, I moved my family's vineyard to help start out this very aspirational winery that was growing a lot of Italian. Well, I helped them plant the right varieties they needed to do. Um, but I built a beautiful team up here, and a lot of our success and in our heyday was the interactions where all of a sudden with what coming down our I used to always go to Chicago, Minneapolis, and other things. I would skip over Detroit because whenever I used to go down there, they'd plop me down in some suburb somewhere, and I'd have some restaurateur at an old, classic, Italian place saying my wine's too dry, not sweet enough, and too expensive. And I got tired of hearing that. So I'd written Detroit off, and everybody's like, "No, no, you got to go down there. You got to go down there." I knew Madeline and other people were doing great things. And then about 10 years ago, I started to really understand Detroit, and we built those great connections with Mabel Gray and Freya, and then Paramita Sound, like and Motor City Wine, the coolest friggin' wine bar in the country, and I'll fight anybody on that one. And and so that's another thing. Getting, have a Detroit ended up becoming much more of a welcoming and cool market than Chicago was. Partly it's economics. Chicago got hit with a big, during COVID, really hard in the restaurant industry. So it's reaching out and it's telling your story to audiences and ones that we, especially things that we share things with, so that we all feed off each other. Know that we're trying to give an identity for Michigan up here, and meanwhile bringing the world into here and acknowledging, having a bunch of Germans come here and come inspired is something I think, and everybody in Detroit can probably relate to with the birth of techno and all that, for that really strange interaction of craft work and all the and one of those beautiful
Hmm.
things that can only happen in Detroit. And so we're trying to do it with wine up here as well, maybe on a little smaller scale.
Would
That's my
you
short answer.
I think you hit on some really cool stuff though. I mean, like the city of Riesling thing. I mean, it could be that it was just too early, right? And would you ever
Oh,
consider
absolutely
bringing it
too
back?
early. One of my bands, the Replacements from Minneapolis, one of their mottos was 12 years too early, 12 years too late on everything they did. They also drank a lot and got in trouble, but no comment there. But um, and it was too early. All those wines, I mean, the wine culture now, people know who all these wineries are. At least there's a little more knowledge who winemakers are in different and more obscure, I would say not obscure regions, but lesser known regions.
Hmm.
And we really need to bring it back, but maybe I think it should probably be mostly down. And I've talked to Jared and other Riesling nuts down there, and we keep on threatening to bring it back. All the people from Oregon are like, "When are you going to do it again?" Um, so I'm open to discussion. I haven't really talked to Amanda about it and all that, but I think it'd be a good time. I mean, think about it. When you go, there's no place in the United States that has Stadtgarten where you have this like place that just serves Savannah out of a window, by the
Right.
college. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so. Um, the Riesling selections like at Western Market, or and then what's the new the old German bar that has been under new ownership, the that goes back to the well, anyways, I'll think of it later and all that. There's a lot of Germanic connections and and all that, and it's also people would love to visit, and then bring the Californians and the Oregonians and the Austrians and the New Zealanders, and I think everybody would absolutely be delighted. I mean, we got them up to Traverse City because it's pretty up here, and we could go hang out in boats and all that. In Detroit, we can go hang out in Motor City and all that, and listen to great music and eat well all around town. I think it's a matter of just funding the whole thing, because Amanda and
Hmm.
I had to just scramble for cash, and I had to self-fund a lot of it, and I've never made that much money, and that was more than I could do. But it was worth every freaking bit because it was so much fun. We made so many friends of people from all over the world. So yeah, we should do it.
Yeah, that's what's kept me around for so long, is the camaraderie in the industry, and it's familial in certain aspects, and
Yeah,
trying
good and
to
bad. Yeah, just saying. I know you're saying sorry, but yeah.
it's no,
Yeah.
you're 100% right.
Yeah.
There's people you love to hate too, right? So there's
Yeah, you got the weird
uh
uncle they only see once a year, talks politics at the Thanksgiving. You have I don't know, all that. Yeah, it's all up here, but yeah, I hear you. It's very small, tight-knit community.
Sean, this is Ken Williams that has joined us here. He's our screenwriter for this, because this is the preemptive screening for a show that we're trying to put together. So we hear you 100% when it comes down to funding, because we started down this road over 18 months ago, trying to pitch a actual TV show that was along the lines of like man versus food type of thing. But
Mhm.
we had this idea of plug in Michigan wine in certain places, and of course we didn't have any money, and people were like, "That's a I'd probably watch it, but we're not going to give you any money for it. So this is what we're doing now is trying to build up a following so that we can have some cachet and
Yeah, absolutely.
show people. But meet Ken. Ken, this is Sean O'Keefe,
Hey, Sean, how are you? How
one of
you
the
Nice.
doing?
sages of the Michigan wine industry here. And
Oh, we
as
can
you can
stop right
tell,
there. My dad told me whenever people start honoring you or saying things like that, it means you're no longer a threat. So, anyways, go on. I'm kidding, but yeah.
Well, Sean,
Yeah.
just so you know, when
Uh,
we first got started doing wine tastings down here in the Metro
mm,
Detroit area, um, your dad and your brother were really instrumental in making sure that we were up and running, that we could get the products from
mm,
Chateau Grand Travers.
yeah.
Because I think your dad was supposed to come down to an event, and he sent your brother, but he sent your brother with a whole bunch of stuff. So we were extremely happy, and that's another reason why I think I ran into you at one of the Frontier tastings
Mm,
that they had over at Detroit Vineyards. And the
mhm.
minute I started tasting with you, I realized um, that that the what your dad started, you are taking to the next level,
Yeah, I
and
hope so.
doing some things that are just, number one, they're amazing.
Yeah.
And what I loved about it, you just kept saying, because I guess you pictured that once I tasted a couple of them and you saw my face, you're like, well, let me pour you this and let me pour you this.
Yeah.
And everything was just right there. And I I want to do whatever I need to do. The City of Riesling
Mm,
thing is sounding like it could be like a traveling thing in Michigan.
mhm.
Um, and specifically in Detroit, because we're still developing a lot of new restaurants. We have some
Mm.
that are crashing and burning, but it's almost like as soon as two close, three open up. So,
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, the
That's
Dakota was I
true.
was trying to remember before. The German
oh, the Raskeller.
yeah, the German beer garden in the middle. It's just it's so unique. You just don't see that in other cities in the United States and all that.
Yeah.
So I think as a person that loves German wine, I don't know if people realize how unique for that how much variety there's available in Detroit. And I think a lot of it is like Putnam and Jared and a lot of these really uh, uh, hyper-focused persons that brought a lot of those things in. And then obviously Madeline with all her efforts and all the people that have been there on the front lines, basically all these restaurants and wine education and other things. It's made it really, you don't see that as much in other cities. I mean, honestly, I mean, I haven't been everywhere, but I think it's pretty unique. And I don't know why, but I still see because of the connection with techno, with that interaction of American, especially Detroit Motown music and then also the people in the early industrial music scene with taking Kraftwerk and all these German things and all that. I think there's some neat synergies that could happen. I don't know.
Well, Sean,
Yeah,
just so you
yeah,
know, I've got a pretty decent connection with most of the techno DJs here in Detroit.
yeah,
And I think that this could be something that, like you said,
mm,
it's a merging of two things. It's a merging of honoring Riesling, but also honoring something from Detroit that made it to Germany or
yeah,
made it to Europe and
yeah.
just overturned it.
Yeah, cultural exchanges, and then
Yeah,
that's something that wine's all about on the person to person level, and then the communities that build up from it, and that's the stories I like to hear and participate in, and I'd be all about helping and whatever I can do to make that happen. You know,
cool.
yeah.
you hear that, Ken? That's a pillar.
Mm.
Oh
Community,
yeah.
brother. Talking
Yes,
about the community thing we always start to talk about.
Yeah, and
yeah,
now
as
we get to yank the techno DJs in. So this is really going to be crazy.
Sean,
yeah.
let me
Yeah.
ask you a a question that you and I face all the time now, and that's the changing behaviors of your wine demographic now that we're transitioning from the baby boomer generation that was
Mm.
pretty much our core clients, that we're 100% bought into the Madelines, to the wine enthusiasts, to all of these
The gatekeepers.
the gatekeepers,
Yeah.
and to the millennial demographic. And I don't think that we've quite touched the Gen Z yet. I still think they're too young, but trying to attract them in a way that's different from what we're used to. Um, what what are your thoughts on how to access that particular group?
Well, we touched upon it. I've been reading all the data and or I get all I mean, I read all the news streams and the things and uh there is I mean COVID the one thing to keep in mind is that people drink so much more wine and not necessarily great wine during COVID. So there and lots of alcohol in general. And I don't really necessarily like to be lumped in with hard spirits or especially beer because they're different things and all that. But
Agree.
and so we plummeted off that. So that's already accounts for a big 15%. We went up 15-20% and we're coming down from that. But more importantly, I think, yes, people, I think we're in the middle. I don't know what you call it, a recession or depression right now. It's a two-tier one. The people, the boomers and the people that have the money that are profiting off the stock market and other things that have and all that, they're not buying as much wine. And honestly, they didn't buy a lot of our wine. They were buying Duckhorn or,
Sure.
famous brands. I'm not trying to pick on Duckhorn. I'm just saying. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very good at what they did. And so they're going away, or if they did, they bought those wines. The people coming up honestly can't afford to go out that much right now. So when people, um, yeah, there's a lot more use of cannabis and alternative things. And yes, I don't think people need to be drinking so much, but a lot of that is lay off the White Claw,
Mm-hmm.
Wine is something that typically you're always in conversation with somebody. There's usually food involved. I love when people come back from Europe. I'm like, oh, the wines are much cleaner over there. I never have a headache. It's going, when you were there, what were you doing the whole time? Well, we were eating the whole time. And what were you
Yeah.
drinking water the whole time and all that.
Yeah.
And so those are the things we need to encourage and let people know and not automatically get lumped in with White Claw's bad stock earnings. But people can't go out, and that's where you learn about wine. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
you from wine bars and other things. And if you can only go out a little bit, it's hard to build it up. Let alone travel to Europe or Australia or South Africa or God, the whole world's making wine one way or another. There's all kinds of places. Portugal, where a lot of Americans like to go. And but so we're not building that culture up yet because people aren't traveling, getting the wine bug. People can't afford it. The people who do, like I mentioned before, will buy a nicer bottle of wine and not so much wine. You're seeing
Mm-hmm.
people don't buy cases of wine at the wine
Right.
like they used to. It's always a bottle of this or bottle of that, and it's luckily it's the ones you usually like to make. They're the ones that probably are a little more pricier, the ones that have more intense, like more deliberate and intention in farming. That the and some thought to the labels and things, and not just from a marketing firm. It's a story to be told,
Mm-hmm.
and it's spread much thinner, and it's going to be hard for the big wineries to maintain it. But at the same time, they kind of own their own. Like I would say, like my family's winery and St. Julian and all that is that if they can, keep on improving and all that, I think they're going to do fine. All the new coming wineries are going to be much smaller. They're not going to be
Yeah.
these 15, 18,000 case wineries anymore. You're going to see a lot of 600 cases, 2,000. It's going to be two people or three people running it. You see a lot of couples or people doing everything. And you guess what? That's a lot like what traditional wine growing in Europe is like.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not going to be able to scale up automatically on some things. And if that sounds negative, like maybe it is for the stock market, but you're going to have a lot more direct contact with your consumers and all that. And that's why we have to be, doing these things. I like doing these things anyways, but talking all the time because it's
Yeah.
going to be 1 degree of separation. You can't, unless you're one of those pop out things. And it's a challenge, but it's kind of a fun one. I just there's hope with all the other things going on in the world that wine is something that people have time to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you're saying really resonates with me. I remember It's been years ago now. But I did a session with the Grape and Wine Council way back when that we invited, I don't know if you remember, Elena Amboyan from IRI
Yeah.
came in for that year.
Hmm.
And she was talking about how, um, and that this is, Chuck, this is probably 15 years ago now. I don't remember. But my point is that she had all this demographic data and just kind of slicing out the adult beverage consumer.
Hmm.
Okay.
And you've got 50% of the American citizen that enjoys adult beverage. So we'll put that aside. Of that 50%, you've got another, 50% that's a beer drinker. So you put that aside. And then when it comes down to it, of that particular group, 20% were actually wine drinkers, and local wine, meaning Michigan wine, was 6%. So when people ask me that question, I'd say we've been fighting for that 6% our whole career.
Hmm.
That's one of those things
So,
that we've been trying. Michigan's been a hand sale since the beginning of time. So as far as to your point, Sean, of being the duck horns or these mass producers,
mhm.
we've been we've been fighting this fight for our entire career, type of thing, right? So you're
Yeah. Oh, you're an emerging region. I'm like, oh, we've been emerging as long as Oregon and
wow.
Washington. We've all started around the same time. It's just that we're always emerging.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're either
Well,
emerging or just getting blatant hate, which is what
yeah.
I don't like.
Well, yeah, you're right
Oh,
about
it
that
was
too.
worse before. Honestly, when Wine Spectator and Robert Parker and Stephen Tanzer and all these kind of people kind of ruled the day. Um, this in the early 70s, it wasn't too bad. When you look at the books and and the things, people are a lot more open-minded because Napa at that point had not dominated. They were still on the ascent, where people were like barely drinking American wine and giving it any respect. But once it happened, Wine Spectator wrote a really nice article about my dad, like in 1980 or something like that. And that was probably the last mention that they ever visited ever again, besides a little bit of here and there, because there'd be like, we didn't have distribution outside of the state of Michigan, and
Mm,
that's on us. I remember Eric Asimov from the New York Times he wrote an article on American Riesling. He's going, I'd like to lead this whole article off talking about Northern Michigan, Old Michigan Peninsula Riesling, but very few people sell in New York City or anywhere where my readers are, so I can't. He did that on purpose to poke us. And we don't sell much out of the state of Michigan, and I understand the reasons for it. But I remember visiting California when I was a young winemaker and visiting, I think it was Saintsbury. And I went to visit the guy, and I had an appointment, and I go, I'm a Michigan winemaker. When I introduced him myself, he looks up at me and goes, why? And
Okay.
his name was Richard, so I was ready to,
Yep. Call him.
yeah.
Yep.
But he held it for an uncomfortable long time. Then he just started laughing. He's going, I know your wines, like, because the winemakers and other people have had much more curiosity and knew what was going on, all that. But
yeah.
you made it uncomfortably long, and I was so used to that. Why would you even do that? It's cold up there. You don't make wines like in sunny California. Why would you do it where it's so difficult to do? And one of the things that also changes, the global warming in people's minds is that we do have, unfortunately, I would rather have it not have this advantage, but the Gammets and Rieslings and things that I had a chance to try in the 80s and 90s, they're not being made anymore in the same style. And it's so much warmer in Europe and pretty much everywhere else that you're getting these higher alcohols, bigger style wines. And some of them are really delightful and beautiful, but we have warmed up enough that instead of having sometimes a little bit of a thin edge on some of our wines, we're always crossing the finish line. So we complain about a year like 2019.
Right.
I made a beautiful Cab Franc that year. It wasn't easy, but I did. That would not have been possible in the 70s and 80s, but we are warming. And that's part of the story, and people are open to us. And then just with the magazines are gone. Parker's gone. They just talk about very expensive luxury goods. And
Yep.
so now we have social media, and it's worked pretty well for a period of time because we are different. When people say Michigan instead of ew, like especially younger people or at least open-minded people, there's more curiosity because they've tried wines from Lebanon, they've tried wines from different islands in Greece, they've tried the idea of something from a different place is no longer automatic no, which it used to be.
Right.
So we're lucky, but now there's so much available that we're lost again because oh, I want to drink that Lambrusca pet nat from Croatia or something like that. And I'm like, that's great, but that should stay over there. We can easily do stuff like that here. Bring the good stuff. Anyway, so that's a different story. But yeah, once again, that's my short answer. So
So why
yeah.
don't you give us a little some of your favorite up and coming producers
In
that you're
Michigan?
seeing now. Yep.
Three trees out in Wheeling
Yep.
County. I absolutely adore their tasting room. They built it themselves. They're Detroit. They're the two Phil and Scott are Detroit engineers, and they just focus on Cab Franc and Merlot, and they created a beautiful space up there. It just feels wines are not cheap, but when I go there, the idea is I think of like when you go to if you go to Paris or a place like that, coffee's really expensive. You're not paying for the coffee, you're renting space to hang
Mhm.
out. So if you get a bottle of wine and drink it there and you spend 50 or 60, it's going to be a lot cheaper than any restaurant. You're going to be in the most beautiful spot in Wheeling County. And the wine's really good. The other up and coming one, not up and coming, but I'm really impressed what Bregman's been doing lately. I thought that they were, this is my opinion, I thought they weren't focused before. I thought they were kind of going all over the place. And then the last couple of vintages, I really see a house style developing. They do a lot of concrete vessel things and all that.
Mhm.
And I thought that was cool. I like when a winery you can taste where they're from.
Yeah.
Um, Leftwood Charlie's always been on. They're I don't. Everybody knows they're just doing great. They're awesome. Um,
Yeah. He's no longer up and coming. That's not fair.
yeah, I know. I know. We used to be the young winemakers, and now we're all we're not, but we're still. I like what Lee with oh, what's Lee's called? There's Tony with his God, I'm so horrible with the names. It's not Phoenix, but there's a lot of winemakers that left that were like cellar masters or pretty high ups.
Tony Jacobson, you're saying?
Yeah, Tony Jacobson and
Yep.
then Laughing Lee's wines. I mean, I'm drawing a blank right now, but they're hustling. They're everywhere trying their wines, and they're really good. I like what Andrew's doing at Medallis for the most part.
Mhm.
I haven't tried enough of strangers' wines, but I'm always curious to try them when I'm down there.
Yep.
I wouldn't say they're really up and coming either. But Southwest, I think, is much more interesting area. It used to be only Jim Lester that I'd ever pay
Right.
attention to down there, and there's a lot more. Those are the ones that
Yeah.
come immediately to mind.
In fact, Max, I think, is on Jim Lester's old vineyard there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When I left Mari, Jim gave me one of the nicest pep talks I've ever heard. And that was really cool. He's going, he's one of those other interesting characters in the wine business, and we're lucky to have him. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are the ones that poke up on Old Mission. Everybody here has been a while. As you know, we're kind of in a standstill because nothing's happening up here because of the dispute between the township and the winery. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern. And oh, the other one, Poet Son, I think is really for the natty, more let's say the wines with more 0-0 or the ones that are very styled to be more grungy, I guess. Poet Son, I think he's based out of like Fenville or Southwest or Sources Grapes, a lot of them from up here. And then Parati or that one that's done. He makes these wine Parati. He makes these. Um,
I
yeah,
think I met him at a tasting down here, and I don't remember his name either, but I've got his information somewhere in my
the
phone.
wines are interesting because I trained in Germany and I had to took a while to accustom myself to the wines that smelled like kombucha and fish sauce and all that. And now I'm seeing a lot less of that. And the people that know what they're doing, like even this the Merlot here, this has very little sulfur. I can already see it's opening up. But it's beautiful that so you can dial all these things down almost nothing to make beautiful things. But in the early days, it was pretty crazy. But this guy grows, from what I understand, he grows grapes in the middle of a cedar forest, or I mean, a place that makes no sense. He's making these pet nats that are, if you call it natural wine style, but they're really the ones I've had have been fascinating and very
Yeah.
good. And the labels are it's cool.
Well, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, I think he has like a golf string trailer or something like that.
Yeah. That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see more of that. And then I don't know what everybody's doing up in Petoskey and up there. I don't get up there enough with folklore and that whole group, but I imagine everybody's been at it for a while. I just have to get out and try all these things.
A lot of Marquette, that's for sure up there.
Yeah, no
And if
comment.
they're not doing Marquette, they're doing cider, I think.
Yeah, Marquette, I'm still on the fence of. But that's because I play to what I know and all that, so I'm not trying to
Yeah, sure.
To me, if someone's growing something that grows very well where they are and they're not bringing a tanker truck in from somewhere else, they've already earned my respect, and I'll do everything I can to understand what they're trying to do, and especially with folklore, I try some really nice things from them. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then I don't know what Boss is doing up there, if he's sourcing grapes from up there or not, but we'll be hearing more. And then I don't know anything about the rest of the state, like in the thumb or things like that. That's completely unknown to me. So, and then
There's a
is Detroit Vineyard still going or?
No.
Detroit Vineyards is closed, but
Okay.
there's a trio that you need to pay attention to down there called Drew Ryan Wines. Um,
Yeah.
that's Peter King and Merrick Steele and Matt Jones, and
Mhm.
they're doing some really cool shit over there at a Pingree Farms.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they actually took a bunch of barrels as Detroit Vineyards was closing. They took a number of barrels
Mhm.
from Detroit Vineyards and they're blending them for private labeling,
Yeah.
but also their own stuff.
Well, you're seeing that. I was going to throw another one, and this is in Chicago, Middlebrow Brewing, but
Mm-hmm.
people are sourcing a lot of grapes from up here because we have a surplus. And you're seeing whether it be at Dallas or when Chris is at Detroit Vineyards and other things, that you're seeing grapes that are grown maybe on Leonard Old Mission, but they're finding homes in Chicago, where they're being made into wines down there or in Southwest Michigan and things. And that's going to be a trend that is going to stay for a while. And what I like, hopefully in most cases, they're being made into unique, really cool things. Sometimes they're just kind of, I won't name names, blended away into huge bottlings of something. But I've had some really cool things. I think Middlebrow is going to be a big player too because they know how to sell wine and make a really great atmosphere in Chicago. When you go there, I went there and I was just like I was ready to get all in a huff and puff, and I just realized I was jealous. It's like this is great. Like why wouldn't I like this? So so I changed my mind right there and there, and so those are things I see happening, and then. Hopefully, several great sparkling producers, Tony being one of them, is going to emerge because I think um, we need more. We absolutely need so much more. Yeah.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to go to Slovenia a couple months ago,
Oh, cool.
and it is a very very interesting country, um, from my perspective. But the sparklings there are just the closer to the Alps, they're just screaming hot, man. There's some really cool shit they're doing over there,
Yeah.
and to think about the size of Slovenia, guys, the size of Metro Detroit, and they've got 2,000 producers in that place. We've got what, 200 in Michigan?
Yeah,
No,
but of the 200, how many are just like legal labels for people bottling stuff for their brewery or something like that?
so there's 450 licenses.
Okay, you're probably more intelligent than I am then. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Brim Beverage is Lee's wine, so check his stuff out. And Tony's is I just picture that Phoenix, and I feel so bad because I was just hanging out with me the other day, so I want to promote him, and I'm like, loving it. But anyways, he's doing a good job of getting his wines out there. So
I'm going to look
see
it up.
Yeah.
He's got one wine that he just released this year, right?
Yeah.
What's Tony's wine?
And you'll find his stuff like up here, like at Little Fleet or Farm Club, or like the places that are very into the farming and supporting the small producers and things. And I would imagine if he makes a visit down to Motor City or down to visit everybody down there, that he would find a nice welcome. And then, I don't know what's going on in Grand Rapids and all that, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, while Brian is looking for that, I wanted to go back to your mentioning of the replacements.
yeah,
Loose Cannon.
Loose Cannon, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Tony. Trying to give you a nice, but anyways, he had replacements.
Yeah, no, because I spent 5 years up in Minneapolis from '84 to '89.
Oh, okay, that's what.
One of my best friends was the receptionist for Twin Tone Records.
Oh,
so,
cool.
So I used to go to some of the concerts at the local clubs. So when you mention the replacements, that's almost, I mean, that's my history, and that's
Well,
why
you're
I
in the
cut
right
my
place
teeth.
at the right time. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things I didn't, that's how I pictured Traverse City up here for a little bit is, growing up, everything came from LA or New York, all the cool bands and things, and people, or if they were from different parts of the country, I'm talking about in the 80s and, late 70s, 80s, and 90s. This is after, Motown's, had its heyday in Philadelphia and other things. It was mostly, but, it's basically either New York or Los Angeles.
Right.
And especially like in bands I listen to, like, the American punk rock and alternative bands or independent, whatever they called. They weren't college rock back then, I guess. And no one, all of a sudden you had these bands coming from places like you had Austin, Texas with like Butthole Surfers and Tulsa with Flaming Lips. You had also Husker Du replacements, let alone Prince and things, and Minneapolis. Athens, Georgia with B-52s and then REM coming out of all those things and then DC with Bad Brains and Minor Threat. I mean, they all kind of started it a little bit, but I always felt that I was really proud of Minneapolis because all of a sudden everybody's like, this is the place. And I think that's what we kind of had to think about and wine wise is that if we try to be like a hair band from California, our wines are not going to look ridiculous. We need to play to what we do well. And that's what I loved about Minneapolis is one of those first cities before Seattle was a known thing to really become a music city that no one had really ever heard of or considered as one.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah, I was just really, I kind of was proud. I was so proud to be in a Great Lakes area that Minneapolis is doing so well.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the
No,
best
that
punk
was
rock came out of Lansing, Michigan. I can't, but that's a different story.
Minneapolis was just live band city. There were just so many clubs. Here in Detroit, it's all about the DJ. In Minneapolis, it was all about live music and live bands. So Monday through Sunday, you could at least find at least 10 to 15 venues that had live music. So there was a lot of different places for people to play. So, and since it was cold, what you gonna do but play and practice?
Right.
Oh, that's why Seattle did so well. It's raining, it's cold, it's miserable. Go inside and play music and all that. So yeah.
So this is probably the time of the episode where we get to the bottom of that glass. And Sean, you shared with us what you were having.
Yeah. This is the Three Trees 2021 Merlot.
So. And Three Trees again is on the Leelanau Peninsula, and that's
and they grow all their own fruit, and they're they're worth checking out.
Chuck, what you got?
No, I had a podcast earlier this week where I was tasting a bourbon, so I figured I'd go Michigan with the Ironfish.
Oh, that's local, yeah.
Yeah, with the Ironfish rested in maple syrup barrels.
Okay, I gotta try that.
So it's a nice finish. I fell in love with it. They had a whiskey festival down at the Eastern Market one year. And I met some people while we were waiting in line to get in. And once we got in, we went in a different directions. But we had made such a connection online that we met each other like the middle of one of these things. And he goes, man, into this row, ironfish, you got to taste it. You got to taste it. So I went back down there and I was just like, wow. And so it's been like 3 years now. It stays on my bar.
Oh.
So Ken, you just sold a bottle to Ken, sounds like. So
oh yeah, of course.
Ken's gonna have to go to Meyer and buy some.
Yes.
Ken, what you got?
So I have actually the sample that you brought, Chuck, the Lesson Norma.
Oh,
I have the sorrel and rum Lesson Norma.
Pre-made cocktails.
Yes, yes, very good. Very good.
That's some good stuff.
I've been taking some notes here as you guys have been talking, so I definitely wrote down the Ironfish whiskey. I wrote down some of the wines, Sean, that you recommended, the Three Trees and the Loose Cannon. And then just listening to your story, Sean, and doing some of these interviews, the one main theme that I keep hearing about, I just put as my notes, I call it the Michigan wine story, where it seems like Michigan is and continues to be like the underdog, it sounds like, in the world of wine, when all you guys collectively talk about, making wine here compared to other parts of the country, out west in California and maybe some other places out west. And you guys were talking about, overseas, all the different wineries overseas and how they kind of dwarf what we have here. So I really think we have a good opportunity when we're talking about eventually once we start shooting the TV show of really telling the Michigan wine story, what we're doing with Two Guys Tasting. So that was just a note that I wrote down because I think that's again, listening to you, Sean, talk about wine and some of the other people that we've interviewed, that seems to be a consistent theme. So I think that's a theme we can tap into once we start shooting the show and moving forward with any other things that we do. And then
Especially overseas, especially when maybe everybody knows that, at least for music and arts and culture and food and all that. It has uh, uh, people are ready and willing and are excited to come to Detroit, and that's what's really cool. And I don't think you get that same reaction. Go to Orlando or something, it's just it's or
Sean,
Indianapolis or something.
Sean, you can't diss the mouse like that.
I mean, it is the happiest place on earth.
Or else, yeah.
In theory, Brian, in theory. You're not happy when you pay that price to get into the park. I tell you that much.
Lord Jesus.
That's true. Well, it is
9:05.
9:05. We want to respect everyone's time here. Sean, appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so much, my man.
Yep.
And, thank you, Sean.
Thanks for sharing your experience with us. And then what we'll do.
Nice to meet you too, Sean. I want to see if we get Daft. Can we get Daft Punk to the Techno Wine event? Brian,
I don't have that much pull. I mean,
Chuck does.
No, well, let me
Chuck
check.
Know somebody.
Let me check my LinkedIn. Let me check my LinkedIn and see who I'm connected to.
Well, we can see if Maynard Keenan wants to have another band that has a techno element because he has Michigan roots. Maybe
there you go.
But one thing, I'm going to be at Freya on the 17th. I'm doing a David Lynch dinner with the crew there. So I'll be down there. So
March 17th.
Yep.
March 17th.
Okay.
Be there or be square.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see if I can make it over there.
When is St. Patrick's? Okay, I should know that being Irish. Jeez, yeah, that's 18th. So,
it's later that week.
Yeah, so that might be interesting. But
it's the day before.
Yeah,
is it the 16th?
Yeah. Well, St. Patrick's is.
It's the same day as your event, Sean. It's the 17th.
Yeah, we make sure I have the right date because I couldn't even remember Tony's one, but get the date wrong. But
St. Patrick's Day, the 17th.
no, my dinner's on the 15th, Sunday.
Oh, Sunday.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something didn't sound right there. So yeah,
Yeah.
the
Well,
15th.
that's right after the event that I'm doing Friday and Saturday. So I'll be
Mhm.
open. I'll be available Sunday.
Yeah.
And if I need to go hang out with Sandy anyway.
Yeah, he's great. And yeah, we're doing David Lynch. I mean, that's another thing in the wine world, and I know we have to wind up here is find different themes and all of that. And I could talk about calcareous sand or limestone or rock and all of that. And that is part of wine's story, but there are other wines also about communities and sharing information. And so we're just getting all the David Lynch geeks in celebration of him and pairing wines that you'll see where how I did it if you can go there. There's some pretty interesting combinations. And then this next week in up here in Traverse City, we're doing a Fibonacci sequence at the Cook's House where I'm pairing wines. So,
Nice.
uh, um, trying to do some different things and make it like, bring out different communities of people and have some good conversations with wines from Michigan, but also wines from all over the place. So they're all in context and all that. So that's what I'm doing. Hopefully, see some of you guys in Detroit on the around the 15th.
Yeah,
And
most
Before we
definitely.
let you go, Sean,
yeah.
what is one wine of yours that you're excited to release in the next several months?
Well, I'm a Ronin winemaker right now. I'm not attached to my former lords, so
Of course, but
um,
there's got to be something you're proud of that you're like, if you get
oh,
a chance.
I don't even know if they know what they have. I would say any the last wines that I did everything on that were bottled were 2024 wines, and
Hmm.
they're but I make a mull. This is probably the last ones, but I make a wine called Ambra or Bestiary Ambra, and it's made from Malvasia, Sauvignon Blanc, and Friulano that are fermented on skin. But not an orange wine. It doesn't taste like an orange wine. It does have a little bit of tannin, but not how you would picture it. And that
Ambra
wine,
means shadow, right? Is it
what's that?
Italian for shadow?
No, Ambra means like amber,
Okay.
and amber means I think like a well, anyways, I won't go into the Greek, but in any case, it's the color. It's a yellowish, it's a darker yellow or a darker hue, but it's not pink or orange or anything like that like Pinot Gris would do. And it's been aging. We bottled it right before I left, so that's the one because that's going to be my last kind of very what I thought the future like a wine that is so different from anything that's produced anywhere in this part of the country. And so I would look for that one.
Okay.
And all the things from Mari from 24 earlier, I everything I made, there's not a single one that I dislike except for maybe
Mhm.
maple wine. But that's only because it's my problem. I made it well.
All right. Well,
So,
thanks for your time, my
all
man.
right. Yeah.
Thanks,
Hope you have a great
Sean.
evening.
All
Yes.
right. Bye,
Sounds
gentlemen.
good. All
Have
right,
a good
guys.
night.
All
All
Take
right.
right.
care now,
Bye-bye.
everyone. See ya.